Hey there, how are you? And welcome to 10 Visits, your video guide to doula training and doula info. Very happy to be with you today. My name is Samsarah Morgan, and I'm a birth and postpartum caregiver. I've been in practice now 28 years, and I am the lead teacher as well as the founder of the Professional Doula Birth and Postpartum Doula trainings. These videos are meant to support folks who are taking my class, as well as other folks who are beginning their training as doulas or are already doulas but just want to have a little bit more information on various subjects and create community around being a birth worker. So I hope that what I have to say will be helpful to you. And there's a series of these little 10-visit videos. You can find them on our Facebook page, and they're on YouTube. And I'll give you information at the end of the video on how you can reach me if you want to. And yeah, so we're going to get started. And today we're going to talk about being on call, and we're also going to talk about backup. Now, I want to make it clear that everything that I talk to you about, there's no set standard on how doulas do what they do. There are different groups that put out standards that feel good to them, but there's no set standard. There are basic standards of professionalism, which I certainly hope that folks are adhering to. But as far as, different techniques and ways of doing this, I'm going to share with you what I have come to over my, time doing this work, and what has been effective for me and in building rapport with my clients and maintaining my practice. So I'm going to talk first about having a backup. Now, the backup doula is a person who literally will back you up. That's a person who, if something happens and you're not able to make a birth, there is somebody reliable who can step in and do for your client what you were prepared and what you contracted to do with that client. It's a very ticklish subject, and really, I stress that the backup should only be used in the most dire of emergencies. I personally would consider it unprofessional behavior to contract with a client and then just not be there and say, oh, I have somebody else, and not have that person step in. The rapport that you've established with your client is a sacred bond. She is depending upon you, her family is depending upon you to walk with her through her labor and delivery. So it would need to be the most dire of emergencies that a backup person would be brought into play. I would recommend that your client meet with your backup provider more than once. It should not be a stranger that just walks in to support her during her labor. It could definitely throw off her energy, could affect her confidence, and be a whole slippery slope that's not good for your client. There's enough for a laboring woman to have to deal with and process. Just the event of being in labor, dealing with her family and family dynamics, is more than enough. Doula should not add extra burden to her client at all. So to ease that situation, you would want to have your client meet with your backup person more than once. My minimum recommendation for doula visits is 10 visits, hence the title of these videos. But, more would be better. In my private practice, I very often work in conjunction with another doula. I've always had a co-doula in my practice, more than not. And that just makes things a great deal easier. Myself and my co-doula have been working with this family together from the very beginning. We have mutual rapport, and in the 3 times in my professional life that I could not be at the birth, because of an emergency, my client was just as happy and just as content and just as comfortable with my co-doula as she was with me. And so the transition was really smooth. Also, there's another situation where sometimes due dates, you're trying to take in clients bearing in mind when their due date is actually going to be, when the babies are going to come. The due date is a guess. And so sometimes some babies might take a little longer and some babies might come a little earlier. And it's been more often that my partner and I have split up and taken care of clients separately because there are these little babies who just decided that they wanted to linger or come early. And so, again, it allows for seamless support of the client because mamas are very understanding for things that are valid, like, oh, I have a client in labor and that's why I can't be with you, but here is my co-doula who you've known, and who you've met with and laughed with and have established rapport with, and so you can continue on with her. Or here's my backup doula who you've met many times and who you also, again, know and care about. You know her, she cares about you, and you can go forward and give birth beautifully. Hopefully your co-doula and or your backup doula is someone with a similar philosophy as yourself, so your client again does not have to adjust to some other way of looking at the birth process, some other vision. That's incredibly important. So you want to replicate yourself as much as possible for your client and facilitate her feeling of disappointment, because even though she might be incredibly understanding, it requires a shift of thinking and a shift of energy if someone else is going to be there when she's been depending upon you and she's bonded with you. So that will just help her out. And again, we want to make sure that it's only the most dire of emergencies, and you really would not want to have your mom do this extra process unless it was something really quite urgent. So that's it about having a backup and having a co-doula. The other piece is about being on call. And I'll be very, very frank with you. Being on call is not my favorite part of being a birth worker. I said it. It's important to tell the truth about these things. Being on call is not my favorite part. My favorite part, my absolutely favorite part, is that moment when the mommy, after all of her work and whatever her travail was and whatever she had to work through and process to give birth to her baby, gets to the point where she pushes her beautiful baby out, and the joy of the family and photos being taken and the sweet little baby that we then help put to mama's breast, and the tears and the joy and the bliss. That, to me, is my absolute favorite part. And that moment when mommy, after she gets the labor that she wants, looks at me and says, I can do anything now. That's what I live for. So I have to remind myself that in order to get to that part, to get to that groovy and wonderful part where everyone's celebrating and kissing each other and the baby's nursing, I got to be on call. Darn it. So being on call looks like this. Being on call starts at it could start as early as like 37 weeks of pregnancy. And for a mama who's expecting more than one baby, it can be earlier. It can be up to like 36 weeks, 35 weeks. And that means that you are ready for this little baby to get born, for the process of labor to begin for the mother, and for her to be looking for you because she needs her doula and she needs to start gathering her support team. Mamas can have signs of labor earlier than this. Braxton Hicks is happening. There might be a little mucus plug, a month before, and things like that. So she wants to happily report all of this stuff to you, and you receive all that information with a great deal of excitement with her. Because, especially a first-time mama, it's all so thrilling that all of these things are happening, just like all the videos you've shown her and all the books she's read, and she's getting ready to go through all these beautiful processes. So you want to greet all of her information with a lot of happiness and a lot of joy. And, there's a lot of stops and starts and things that are happening that she's going to want to check in with you about before true labor really sets in. So you need to be nearby. You need to be available. My recommendation is for doulas to not be more than a half hour away from their client when it's time to be on call. You got to be able to get from wherever you are to her front door in under a half an hour. Very important. I very much recommend that when you're on call for a birth, this is not the time to indulge in alcoholic beverages or any kind of intoxicant. For that, the reason for that seems a little obvious to me, but in case it's not obvious to others, I'll just state that you want to be able to bring your crisp, fresh self to this mama's labor and delivery process. You want to bring yourself the most alert, the most aware, the most positive, the most loving, the most cheerful person that you can be, the most knowledgeable person you can be. And if you've taken any sort of intoxicant, you have turned off that part of your brain. And that's the part of your brain that you have promised to this woman to have in full force and ready and available for her as she has her baby. You also have kind of turned off, in my opinion, you've turned off some of your perception. You've turned off your heart a bit. You've wound your, excuse me, I'm feeling this itchy nose stuff happening. You've turned yourself down, and that might be fine in your private life when it's just you and it's the evening alone or just how you want to wind down. But again, you are professionally making yourself available to be there for this mama and this family and the baby that they're going to have. So we want to not indulge in any kind of alcoholic beverages and or intoxicants during this period of time. You want to have your doula bag packed and ready to go. You want the cell phone to be charged. And I always recommend in your doula bag that you have a separate charger available so that you don't have to scurry around and look for a charger. If you're a mama yourself, lucky thing, please make sure that your child care people are on call, knowing that you will need them at a moment's notice. Be able to quickly secure your young ones with their provider or with your co-parent or mate, and be able to handle all of that in such a way that, again, your client is not overly concerned with your situation. How are you going to get to her? What's going on with your kids? All of that is a distraction to her, her labor process. We wouldn't want her to be holding up her labor to make things easy for her doula. Not cool. Okay. What's up with this itchiness? Anyway, so we want to have our own beautiful children secured with child care. We want to make sure that the car is ready to go, or whatever arrangements we have around transportation to get to our client. And while we are on call for our client, our self-care has to be a priority. So the doula is really prioritizing getting really good sleep. She's prioritizing eating really well, drinking, making sure that we ourselves are hydrated and ready to go. We want to expect the call to come to our client to occur at the most inconvenient time possible. Just count on it. Just count on it. When you haven't made arrangements for childcare, when you just had a fight with your mate, you're tired, you stayed up too late the night before, ring, the phone's going to ring. Your client's going to be saying, I'm in labor. So Murphy's Law definitely, is at play in the wide world of sports, but we want to try to do the best we can to not fall into those traps. So as much as possible, let's get to bed at a decent hour for ourselves. Let's get some good sleep. 9 times out of 10, the call to come in for labor is going to happen in the early morning hours. Very often, there's lots of different reasons that I've read for this, and one of the reasons is that hormone levels tend to rise at night, and so your mama very often will give you a call sometime between 2 and 6 in the morning. So if you just fell asleep at midnight, you're going to be hurting a lot. And, the average labor, first time mama, maybe 24 hours to what? 36 hours. And you might get very little sleep during that whole time. So entering the situation well rested is really, really wise and really helpful to you, so that you can be in that Zen space that you need to be to intuit and assist your client and be there to really enjoy that happy moment when, after all of your beautiful client's hard work, she's presented with her incredibly gorgeous baby, and she can look into the eyes of her doula and see someone who's awake and alive, and who's loving her, and who can be one of the first people to congratulate her on a job well done. So those are the main things that I wanted you to know about being on call. Yeah, not my favorite part, but it's an important part. And we can do it with grace, and we can serve our clients with joy. I thank you for listening to this little video. Please feel free to visit our website. That's going to be scrolling past you at the end of this little video. Visit our website, find out information about our services: birth and postpartum doulas, childbirth educators, family life coaches, almost everything and everything families need to live happy, healthy lives, we provide in one way, shape, or form. I also offer my birth and postpartum doula training, which you can take in person in my classroom, or you can take over the internet by Skype or distance learning. I look forward to talking to you about all of that if you'd like. Again, thank you for watching and listening to me, and have a wonderful day.